Ever since the United States began using the facility at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, as a prison 12 years ago, it has been the subject of controversy. The latest, a federal judge ordering the release of tapes which allegedly show force feeding of a prisoner there. The administration has asked the judge to delay the order for the tape's release. Thomas Drayton has more on the status of the controversial facility.
In order to effect the appropriate disposition of individuals currently detained by the Department of Defense at Guantanamo, and promptly to close the detention facility at Guantanamo consistent with the national...
The new president issued an edict immediately after taking office, meant to begin the process of closing down the Guantanamo Bay detention camp. More than 5 years later, it remains open. Although President Obama signed an order in January of 2009 to suspend military tribunal proceedings at Guantanamo, he was blocked by Congress.
American justice is what people believe separates the United States from other countries.
Later that year, in a 90-60 vote, the Senate passed an amendment to the Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2009, effectively barring the funds needed for release or transfer of Guantanamo Bay prisoners. The military prison, which was operational in January of 2002, was established to hold and interrogate what the Bush administration called extraordinarily dangerous prisoners, and also termed enemy combatants.
Are any of those 90 people al-Qaeda members?
I would doubt it.
Since 2002, the detention center has housed 779 men, including 15 minors and what are called high-value detainees, such as alleged 9/11 mastermind Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who was transferred there from a CIA black site. According to Human Rights Watch, 9 detainees died while in custody. 6 are suspected to have committed suicide. Many detainees have gone on hunger strikes. Many have alleged torture and subpar living conditions. Amnesty International has said the United States detention facilities at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, have become emblematic of the gross human rights abuses perpetrated by the U.S. government in the name of fighting terrorism. According to officials, 149 prisoners are still being held at the Guantanamo Bay Detention Center. And while 78 have been approved for transfer, they remain there. Roughly 600 detainees have been released over the years, many without ever being charged. Thomas Drayton, Al Jazeera.
For the latest on Guantanamo, I'm joined now by Karen Greenberg. She's the director of the Center for Law and Security at Fordham University. Do you think, Ms. Greenberg, that President Obama will end up closing Guantanamo?
I think he's going to do everything in his power to close Guantanamo. I think he made this pledge when he became president, and he is doing many things to close it.
How does he get around the congressional restriction against him expending any funds for the closure?
Well, he has some options. One is to wait for the next Authorization Act, the NDAA, and to get Congress not to vote for this ban.
But realistically, given the kind of cooperation he's received from the past Congress and likely even less of a Democratic Congress in the future, is he going to get any kind of cooperation?
Probably not, but you never know, given what's happening in terms of our military engagement abroad, what other bargains he has to make about what he wants to do in the Middle East, so you don't know. But he could, and there are those who think he will, issue some kind of signing statement next time, or he could veto it. He could threaten to veto it. So he has some powers. The question is, does he want to use them and use up that kind of political capital? But this is a high priority for him, and he's been clear about that from the beginning.
What does it say about the system that 13 years after 9/11, no one at Guantanamo has been tried for that horrible act?
It's shameful. It's shameful not just that no one at Guantanamo has been tried. I mean, one person from Guantanamo has been tried in the federal court system, Ahmed Gailani.
But not in
But no one's been tried at Guantanamo. Some people have been tried. They've been tried and convicted. There have been 8 convicted individuals. But what you really mean is, why have these high-value detainees like the 9/11 defendants not been tried? And that is something that, despite the efforts of lawyers, defense attorneys, prosecutors within the military commission system, they haven't been able to do. And it's just getting harder and harder.
But what's the difficulty?
The difficulties range from the nature of the evidence, evidence that was gotten through enhanced interrogation or torture, other kinds of evidence that may be hearsay and even hearsay beyond what Guantanamo will allow. There are problems with the charging authorities. Some of the things that they have charged individuals with, including individuals who have been convicted, have been removed and vacated. Therefore, the problems are innumerable.
Some of the people mentioned in Thomas Drayton's report have been, some of the detainees have been released through the years. Do we know anything about whether they have, any of those released detainees have subsequently done acts against the U.S.?
Of the 779 individuals that were at one time held at Guantanamo, over 600 have been released, most of them by President Bush. There have been varying figures about who turned to terrorism or to violence after they were let out. There are no really reliable figures. It depends on who you ask. Many have been the target of drone attacks by the United States, or some have been. And so it may be that some of them return or turn to violence maybe for the first time, but maybe that's not the whole issue about Guantanamo.
So as we sit here now, how many are still there? 149. And how much does it cost to keep them there?
The estimates by the Miami Herald research report that was done last summer are $1 million per detainee.
$2.7 million per detainee.
That's the
Why
estimate.
Does it cost so much if there's so few?
Well, because it's, it's the system itself, and then you divide it by the number of detainees. But between the security forces that are there, the cost of having this offshore facility, getting the food there, getting the medical facilities there, et cetera, it's very expensive.
Karen Greenberg, thank you very much for joining us, for your insights. And if anyone wants to know more, just check you out on the web. You've written about this extensively and continue to study it.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.